Hey, this is D Night.
This is Carol.
This is Ty.
And
You're doing your funny baby voice.
That is Ty doing her professional,
funny baby voice.
Yes, her professional
My
call
baby
service
funny.
voice. Yeah,
And you're listening to the Part in the Insurrection podcast.
Yes, you are. If you didn't know by now, we're not actually pro-insurrection. Obviously, that is a play on words. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Prepared to get engaged with a bunch of absolutely fucking ridiculous nonsense because it's been that kind of week. But before we get to that, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Sheets and Giggles. The CEO, my friend Colin McIntosh, is an amazing individual who provided us with some awesome sheets. They're extraordinarily comfortable and they're super soft. And in case you're ever in a situation where a foreign adversary is launching hundreds of missiles and drones at you, despite the fallout of that particular attack, you'll still be comfortable as long as you're sleeping in a set of sheets from Sheets and Giggles. So
yeah. Also, they're sustainable, and that topic we just agreed we weren't gonna, whatever.
They don't know that, Carol. That was pre-show. Yeah,
made of eucalyptus.
Bingo, you nailed it.
Yes, eucalyptus.
Yes. So head to sheetsandgiggles.com, get you some eucalyptus sheets, pick you up a spread while you're at it. That's the pillows, they're fantastic. So of course we're heading into the first week of the trial of the century here on the podcast. It's out of fucking control already. It kicked off Monday and didn't disappoint. I think of note, Maggie Haberman reported that Trump nodded off in the middle of the jury selection, which sparked a series of internet jokes led by yours truly right here on this podcast, D Night, coining the phrase Don Snorleone. I'm sure you've all seen that everywhere.
May the record reflect that D pointed to himself.
Oh yeah, I forgot it's an audio podcast. Y'all can't see me. Yeah, visual jokes don't work on an audio only format. Sorry about that. But yeah, so Trump fell asleep in the middle of the jury selection process. And, you know, of course, I helped kick off the jokes. I'm sure you've seen the Don Snorleone everywhere, thanks to me. Someone coined the term Nodfather. I thought that was pretty fucking hilarious.
Oh, that one's good. I do.
The nod, because he nodded off. That was great. But, you know, can either of you imagine a world in which, like, there was a highly televised incident involving President Biden's freedom being on the line and him falling asleep? Can you imagine the uproar?
I mean, they already like deep fake all kinds of stuff about Biden. This would just be handing them on a platter. We'd never hear the end of it. Ever. We don't hear the end of the fake shit. Imagine a real incident.
I mean, I feel like the media would be calling for Biden's resignation. They'd be like, hey, when's the cabinet going to get involved and invoke the 25th Amendment? They'd be telling them to drop out of the race. It'd be like a firestorm of media coverage suggesting Biden's too old, but yet Trump is falling asleep in the middle of this trial.
They don't say anything about Sleepy Don.
Well, we kind of laugh at it and then we move on, and I that just goes to show that highlights how skewed the news coverage is of each of these people. Like,
I've fallen asleep on this podcast. I've fallen asleep at work. I fell asleep during training. So I really don't care so much. It's funny as hell.
I wasn't going to bring up that you fell asleep on the podcast.
I was more enthralled with how fucking awful he looked. Like,
oh yeah, he looked like shit.
Eyes, those bags, and I think he was listening to Lawrence, and he tried to blend to his ears with that rouge or whatever the hell it is he shellacs his face with. But
yeah, he went back to the corners for a change. But yeah,
but the eyes were so puffy, and then that pink, like all bloodshot. It was so distracting, and the hair, the two different colors, and it just, he looked unkempt, he looked unwashed, and I just kept thinking about Lawrence O'Donnell, and he was like, that face. Like, how many times he kept saying that the jurors are going to have to look at that face and wanting to sneak a peek. And I was looking at it through media, and I was taken aback
Yeah, he
and a
looks like a
gas.
dumpster fire. It's a shame that like a former president of the United States looks like some kind of character off of Tropic Thunder. Um,
To be fair, he was probably crying, right before that.
well,
But
he's
maybe
been
someone should call adult services on Melania.
well, he's been having a rough week. Given that his True Social stock is all the way down to $22 a share. So I'm sure he's like crying inside about the prospects of actually being a billionaire at this point. Boo hoo, I guess. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's what's keeping him up at night. And that's why he's falling asleep in the middle of his own criminal trial. It's the first day and he was nodding off. Also, we're like recording this on the second day of trial. He also nodded off and dozed off this morning too.
I wonder if it's like,
Well-
they'll try to spin it as like some deliberate show of contempt.
Mm.
I've seen like, he's just so comfortable because he knows he's an innocent man.
Oh my God. I thought for sure
No, wait, it was the
evangelical
opposite
line
way. Never mind.
was going to be that he was praying. I was like, how long before they just start saying that he was praying? Because that at his next rally, that's probably what he's gonna say. And then they'll clap and then he'll say, that he had the power of God within him or something about the Holy Ghost. I don't know.
That's funny. Can we do reckless speculation for a quick second?
Ooh, we
Reckless
haven't done that in a long
speculation.
time.
All right. Yeah. Here's the disclaimer. So we don't face a lawsuit like Fox News just settled with the other voting systems company. Reckless speculation. I think one of the reasons why he's falling asleep is because his lawyers have made sure that he's not on any narcotic substances. And so without the uppers, he is dozing off in the middle of court. Or at least that's just speculation. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not making any accusations. I'm just throwing that out there.
Or he was up snorting all night and was crashing.
Well, speaking of rails, he railed against the judge for not allowing him to. You like that transition, don't you?
Yes, I did.
He railed against the judge for not allowing him to attend Barron's high school graduation, despite the fact that the judge is yet to make any decision regarding the matter, saying he'd wait until they were closer to the date. Also, it doesn't appear there's going to be any sort of court won't be in session that day anyway.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, is he not supposed to leave the state? What's the issue?
Well, clearly, Trump is going to have to attend every day of his trial.
Yeah, but if it's a day where he doesn't have court, is he allowed to leave the state of New York?
Yeah, he is. But what he was doing, Carol, is just he had
yeah, I know what he's doing.
Yes, he just likes to whine and complain and have grievances, however unfounded, regardless of whether it's factual or not. Also, you would think, like, if he was so concerned with being there for his son, Barron, whose name I know, which it doesn't appear that he does, you think he'd been more concerned with being there for Barron when his wife was pregnant instead of gallivanting with porn stars.
Everybody says that, but
providing the subject matter for this trial.
I wonder where the hell he's been between the birth and now. Like, everyone's like when he was born, but when the kid was, I was trying to think of any meaningful interaction over the past 18 years in general.
He's had Barron at the White House.
Like, there had to have been, like, usually there's a kindergarten graduation. Usually there's like an elementary school graduation or ceremony.
Yeah, it's like a dance in middle school
kind of, a prom,
something,
or any type of a homecoming,
football
did the kid have
game,
any extracurricular interest,
something,
or even just like
party with Jeffrey Epstein,
or the kid even just playing golf and hanging out,
something like
there's
that. Nothing.
I would not.
Other than them stage events at the White House, you don't really see too many pictures of them.
And there's nothing between the family members, like as far as the siblings.
No.
Like if you have a lot of siblings, and there's usually, like, David has a lot of siblings, but he's super close with his brother, Brian. And so he's like, Brian and I were always super close. I always looked up for him. And then him and Jimmy, they were close because they shared a room for the longest time because they're the closest in age.
Okay, as someone with like an older brother, 10 years older, it does kind of make it difficult to be super close to your super older siblings. And
I mean, it can, and I get that, you don't have a lot in common, and there's a big difference between 14 and 4.
Well,
you don't
you
have a
know,
lot in common. You
But
want to
then-
distance yourself from them for legal reasons.
But when you're like 30 and 40 and 40 and 50 and 50 and 60, that age difference is less.
yeah, it's not
It's
as
less
huge of a
pronounced than it is when you're.
But
you're
again, well,
younger.
look, this is not a normal in the household. And it's also funny that Trump was complaining about this, and Carol, you'll probably enjoy this. But, you know, given the fact that Trump has 4 other children, Michael Cohen has said he's seen no evidence whatsoever that Donald Trump has attended any of their high school graduations.
Yeah. And I can't,
So,
I mean, there's been no, like, I've never seen any of his sons at all. And maybe when he keeps talking about
You
how
don't watch
hard
Fox
he
News.
works and how
You-
smart he is, it's because he knows that he's the smartest one, maybe, of them all,
who that
of
is?
all of his sons. Because I was just looking on the
Who?
internet
Which son?
and I was like,
Who's the
has he ever
smartest?
really been with his son? And he was like, oh, he
Oh,
brought him
Barron's
out to
the
the
smartest?
Consumer Electronics Show when why Trump was giving a speech at the CES show is beyond me, but whatevs. But he was like, my son he hacked Obama's website. That was
Who,
one of his
Barron?
lines.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But that was like the only thing. He was like, my son, he can rebuild this website and he can hack into this and he'll save us money. And I was like, what? It was so fucking bizarre.
Yeah, that's very strange. Also, the lawyers for DA Bragg's office asked the judge to hold Trump in contempt rather for his social media postings targeting witnesses, namely Michael Cohen. The judge said he would hold a hearing next week on Wednesday about the matter, the judge said that Trump must be present for that hearing. I feel like, given the just extraordinarily important nature of Trump threatening witnesses, especially as like we're seating the jury here, you might want to hold that hearing immediately. Just, you know, that's me.
I think it should be, you know how they used to do like, was it Love Connection? And they'd have 3 different people, but you couldn't see them. And then you could only ask them like questions and you had to pick the best person's sight unseen. But like, I think that they should be behind a curtain and then they just ask the questions. I don't think their faces should be seen. I think they should wear balaclavas when they're going into the courthouse, and they should be behind a thing, and all they have is they don't know what
you
race
laugh,
they
Dee,
are.
but I would want those protections if imagine you had been called in for this case.
I
mean,
don't
you
know,
would be
man.
dismissed right away, but like,
Well, I'm black, so yeah, that's probably
not
the
what I
first
meant
thing.
at all. You have,
Yeah, they
you're
wouldn't
a
even like ask me a
notoriously
question.
anti-Trump social media influencer.
Okay, you say that, but me personally, and obviously Trump's lawyers wouldn't agree with this, but I actually feel like I could sit on the Trump trial and be objective as far as the facts presented by the lawyers in the case and apply them to the law in question and come to a prudent and fair decision. Because I actually don't want to see Trump go to jail on some bullshit. I want to get convicted.
Yeah.
I want him to be convicted because the prosecutors put on a trial that was clear and I guess not only clear and convincing, but presented the evidence that he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they failed to do that, I would be the first one to not convict Trump and blame the fucking prosecution for not doing their job.
For fumbling the bag.
Yeah, I'm like as far as the Trump trial goes, I'm like the ideal Biden supporter because I'm more willing to put aside my biases than most. But yeah, obviously I would never make it. They'd be like, "Oh, it's a black guy. Get him out of here." They wouldn't even get to ask me a question. It'd be like the Homer Simpson meme where I walk out of the bushes and they'd be like, "Oh, peace out," and then I
I just get a beret that said MAGA and then I just wear it inconspicuously.
Well, then the prosecution might be like, that's clearly poor decision making skills.
Sure. Okay, never mind. I just wear a pair of those gold sneakers.
Yeah, that might counterbalance the blackness enough. Like where maybe the prosecution's like, we might can let her on, and Trump's team's like, maybe she's black, but she bought the shoes.
Well, anyway, I think we can conclude voir dire because Dee is going to now sit on the trial despite not living in the you know.
Manhattan.
Hey man, if
Yeah.
people can run for Congress
District.
and not live in that state or city or jurisdiction,
Why can't I
you should be able
sit on the
to.
trial? Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not Manhattan material. I don't seem, I don't think of myself as a Manhattanite, so it's probably best that I stay away. But so,
Sorry, no trial for you except from this
no,
side. Anyway, if you were on the jury, that would put you in a very unfortunate position of not being able to discuss anything on the podcast.
oh well, look, that's Michael Cohen's going to be a witness, and he's going to be able to talk on the podcast. But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't be able to talk about the specifics of the trial. Also, by the end of the day, the judge did seat 7 jurors, which means we're 5 short of a complete panel. We're also missing like 6 alternates. But yeah, so that we've gotten to this point at this pace with 7 jurors, we probably should be done with jury selection by the end of the week, if not Monday at the latest, maybe Tuesday. It did start off slow. I didn't expect it necessarily to move at this pace, but I mean, the judge has been serious about getting this taken care of. So it's likely we're going to see opening statements in the trial of the century as soon as next week. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. Also, Kara McGee, who was a woman who was dismissed from the prospective jury pool for some job-related reasons, she made a couple of interesting quotes, and she said it was, quote, jarring to see Trump in person. As Ty might have been alluding to earlier about his physical presence. And
that was a very
like
politically correct way to put that. He was
jarring.
Yeah, her direct quote was
30 feet away from him.
Yeah, no, I think it was closer than that, but yeah, she was 30 feet away. Her direct quote was saying, quote, I had never seen him in person before, and you see someone blown up so larger than life on the media for so many years, to see them in person is very jarring. You get the sense that this is just another guy, and also he sees me talking about him, which is bizarre.
Okay, let me decode what you said. You see someone blown up so larger than life means you see someone on TV and they look so glamorous and different. Then you see them in person and you're like, yes.
He looks
Carol
like
has
asshole
that
juice.
Translator.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah.
But she's also saying like he's not an important person. So I was going to say he ain't shit, and then I was like, I can't say that, and then I couldn't think of anything else to say.
He does look like shit. But no, I mean, I guess if you do think about it for a second, usually where you see him is like on TV and fucking in front of some fucking rally at the White House, and it looks all prestigious and shit.
Yeah,
and
the emperor has no clothes.
And he's like loud, and his voice is booming, and he's like super confident, and he's smirking and shit. Then you see him in court, and he's slumped over and falling asleep and shit, and you're like, God damn, he's really
and he's so orangish brown.
So why are we going to say he wants to attend all of his conferences and hearings and stuff? Is it so he doesn't have to campaign and then he can just blame this?
Yeah, well, he's complaining about having to be there because he's not able to campaign. But hey, can we rewind for a second?
Does he have to be at jury selection?
He has to be there.
Yeah.
Can we talk like, okay, you brought this up again, Ty, the thing about him painting himself orange, but has anyone else noticed how the orange keeps getting darker and darker?
Yeah.
Like he's going to be almost black pretty soon here if he adds any more layers of this fucking makeup. Wow. Is this have something to do with like his comparing himself to Nelson Mandela? Does he want to be Nelson Mandela? Is that why
you never know what the hell is going on in his head?
I think it's part of his general mental unwellness.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like when you see a woman who used to be, when you would see these old movies, like back in the 50s and 40s, and these like aging starlets, and then they would be putting their makeup on, reminiscing about their days when they were like a 20-year-old, and the makeup is so, the white powder they put on their face and the rouge, the red on their cheeks, it's like so stark and extreme. That's him. And then they're like, oh, darling, you look like you did in 1932. That's what in my mind, I think that's what he's really thinking.
It's gotta be. He looks like a fucking cartoon character. It's absurd.
And then his hands were so white. His hands were so white, and the rest of him. And I'm thinking, well, the good news for Trump is that in prison, both Cheetos and chocolate bars are available on commissary, so he can use those to make that perfect blend of whatever the fuck it is that he puts on his face.
Yeah, and he'll be able to get his at least he'll be able to get his Diet Coke fix.
Yes, yeah. He can get his
on commissary,
and then he can make his own makeup
if he's got any money left.
Videos from prison to fundraise for commissary.
Can you see him? Picture him in the orange jumpsuit.
He's gonna be like holding it up. You too can get your Trump branded jumpsuit for $400. Yeah, hello, Patriots. This is your president.
Secret Service behind him because now they have to do time too. Like
you too can get your Trump branded jumpsuit,
and your detail is Trump, and like it's like man, Rikers
for the low, low price.
Signed up for.
Oh, they're not gonna send it to Rikers.
I gave a free jumpsuit to my last lawyer, Michael Cohen.
Or maybe he'll offer a signed.
Lots of associates get a jumpsuit, is what I'm saying.
Man, wait, why are you bringing up his lawyers? So the lawyers in this case, Todd Blanche, for starters, are far more competent than like the Alina Habbas of the world, but I'm totally scared that they're going to do a piss poor job over the course of this trial. Because while people have been giving them credit for being good trial lawyers, they did make like one mishap. That thing they pulled with the late subpoenas for information from the Southern District of New York, where they were hoping to get some exculpatory evidence. They actually received some inculpatory evidence, making him look even guiltier than he would have otherwise. And that was probably not the smartest move. That's a great way to kick off the start of your trial, by subpoenaing evidence that makes your client look even more guilty. That was fucking genius. But also, Trump was mumbling something a few feet away from one of the jurors, and Judge Merchan wasn't having that. He was like, hey, and he was yelling at Todd Blanche, saying, quote, "I won't tolerate that. I will not have jurors intimidated in this courtroom. I want to make that crystal clear." Because, Trump is want to lash out emotionally, obviously given his post-attacking witnesses. And while Merchan has been fairly lenient with that up to this point, he ain't having it with the fucking jury. And Trump's going to spend, I know I keep saying, and a lot of people keep saying, that Trump won't be held in contempt and he won't spend any time in jail over the course of the trial. He will if he fucks around with the jury. So.
Yeah, it seems like the line.
Yeah, that's the line where the judge is like, hell nah, we ain't having this.
And he does not have the self-control.
No.
In fact, maybe they are giving him sleeping drugs, so that's his best chance.
Oh, you know what? That is a good reckless speculation, Carol.
They're trying to keep him sedated.
Benadrilling him.
Like he's a 5-year-old.
To sedate him.
Yeah, that's funny.
Because a silent Trump, any silent Trump, or even a sleeping Trump is a silent Trump, is a good Trump in their mind.
Yeah, I think Judge Engoron in the civil fraud trial didn't do Trump any favors here because there wasn't a jury. Judge Engoron left Trump and his lawyers to kind of go off on all these fucking tangents and be kind of ridiculous and put on a clown show. And it probably trained Trump to have the expectation that he could do the same in his criminal trial. And that is to Trump's detriment, because this is totally different, and Merchan ain't having that shit. And if he's acting out, it's going to go poorly for him. It's going to go downhill really fast. I'm telling you, Merchan is serious about that. He's not going to have that nonsense in his courtroom. But last week we did have the man of the hour from the previous trial of the century.
The trial of the previous century.
I mean, if we're just counting in 100-year stretches from the present, it does overlap. But yeah, America's favorite, beverage branded football player passed away last week. Mr. Yeah, womp womp. Yeah, Mr. O.J. Simpson. Hopefully he can rest in peace, knowing that the real killer is dead.
Yes.
Pronounced piss and also
Yeah, no one's like, oh, poor OJ.
It was so like
I was
just
laughing
looking at the media narratives, and I understand not wanting to beat somebody when they're down, literally, like in the ground, but they were so glossing over. And for those, like millennials and whatnot who are unfamiliar with OJ,
Oh,
to
girl,
say,
we can't even explain it to them.
How could how this former football star fell from grace? No,
Yeah, oh man, oh
not,
yeah.
he didn't just get caught in a bathroom with some hookers or like smoking crack like Marion Barry. Like that's a fall from grace. He murdered 2 people in cold fucking blood, has zero remorse.
Okay, wait, let's rewind for a second, because like we have to give, like, if you're younger than me and Carol here, we're almost 40. Like at the time in 1994, when the news broke that former NFL football star O.J. Simpson was fleeing police on the interstate in a low-speed chase in the middle of the fucking NBA finals. Like, it caught the entire world's attention. Like, everybody in America was watching this shit. Like, we actually don't have I don't think there is like a counterpart to that in like today, the media cycle today. Like, this trial with Trump is it. Like, this is the equivalent of what it was like in 94. Because first of all, it was like the first NBA finals that Michael Jordan hadn't been playing in 3 years. So it was kind of, I mean, not that, again, it was a huge deal when Michael Jordan was playing, but it was also like, oh man, we ain't seen anything like this in a while. Hakeem about to get his ring, and they cut from the finals, and it's OJ and the Bronco going down the street, and they're like, we have reports that OJ Simpson is in the car with Mr. Rawlings holding a gun to his head while fleeing from police. Also, it's fucking hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious, but that OJ got a pass for that, where he had like a gun to dude's head while they was running from the cops, and he ain't never getting held accountable.
Yeah, like, and wasn't he like threatening suicide, murder, and all kinds of shit? Like, It was fucking wild.
Trying to get to his mom's house. It was crazy.
Did he never get charged for like kidnapping that guy, or
no, he didn't. No, he didn't face any. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's bananas that happened. But also, so you have to think about it in terms of the time. Like, so O.J. Simpson was one of those. Like, first of all, in the NFL, running back was a bigger deal at the time. So, like, how we look at quarterbacks now, we used to look at running backs like they were.
Oh yeah.
And then OJ was one of the few NFL players to rush for 2,000 yards in a single season. And like his nickname, the Juice, it was warranted, right? He was like that much of a star, and everybody knew who he was. He was like one of the few black people even doing commercials in the late 80s. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous now to think about like how like the number of people of color of various racial backgrounds in commercials. It wasn't like that in 1988. And this dude was running through the airport on like the rental car commercial or whatever.
Yeah, he was a Hertz guy.
Yeah.
He was fucking, and he was moving in white spaces. He was unashamedly fucking white women.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. So there was very little. There was like,
he was also getting a lot of movie cameos, or at least one.
No. Yeah.
Naked Gun.
Yeah. So there was like Michael Jackson. There was Eddie Murphy. Them was like the biggest stars in the world, and they happened to be black. And then there was like a whole drop off, and then you got to like the 4 or 5 tiers down, and it was like OJ.
Yeah.
But OJ was like one of the biggest stars at the time. So the fact that it got just like out of nowhere, this dude was supposedly was fleeing from police after the murder of his wife and her boyfriend. Like, it was a huge fucking deal. It captivated the nation. And like, you got to go back in time and think about like, this was an inflection point for the 24-hour news cycle. Like, you know how you have like 12, 14, 16 hours of news on a news channel. today. The event that was largely responsible for kicking that off was this with OJ. Like once these networks saw that there was an endless demand for news coverage, that people would sit down and watch all these hours of news TV. They're like, oh yeah, well, we'll give the masses what they want. I mean, of course, this probably was going to happen eventually for some reason or another. But OJ,
the basketball teams watched the trial, or they finished the game? And not the trial.
That's a good question.
Do you think they were all like, "Oh, let's watch the TV"?
Yeah, they watch. I'm sure they watched. I'm sure they tried to catch the news of the chase after the game. But yeah, it was wild. Also, as Ty alluded to, like OJ was one of those. He was one of the few black people in America at the time who could just navigate white spaces. And again, like this goes back to his time at USC, when like that, look, a white dominated space, and OJ was totally at ease with that. And then to marry a white woman, you know, again at the time was, it was far less common than it is in the 2020s. So
I mean, that was the 80s, for God's sake, because his kids were like 8, 9 or something. Yeah, so that was the 80s.
Yeah, this whole like, I guess the Kardashians are doing the reverse OJ, where they white and they go around, you know, banging all these black athletes. I guess, I don't know. It's like, I guess they got that from OJ. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so it was fairly ironic again, like during the trial, like OJ happened to be the beneficiary of a unique set of circumstances where, like, there was a bunch of frustration with police violence all across the nation, but specifically in California, because this was just a few years after that whole Rodney King thing. That was a huge deal. If you're quite young, you might want to look that up. That was one of those inflection points. But it's also weird because if you think about black grievance against like these institutionally racist systems in America, like OJ actually is an odd vehicle for that, because at no point in his life was OJ treated like he was black. He was one of them dudes that was treated like he was OJ.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what he said, right?
He's like, I mean, yeah, it's his thing.
I'm OJ.
Yeah, I'm not black. I'm OJ. And, you know, this was a dude that...
And now he did.
Well, he transcended race in a way that I wouldn't necessarily say I was like, I wouldn't call it an accomplishment to be proud of as like the black community. But I mean, for OJ, it was, you know. But another thing about the trial, like one of the things Johnny Cochran and his legal team did was they went into his house, because, you know, they knew they'd be coming through there for photos and videotape of, you know, how OJ lived. And they took out all the like photos and like all of the, like, you know, the decorations, and they put in like photos of OJ doing all of this, you know, stereotypically black shit, and put up like African decorations and all. It was like fucking hilarious how they tried to just...
Don't put that near me. Sorry. A thumbs up came up because of how I'm sitting.
Okay.
I don't want you to think I was like, yeah, stereotypical stuff.
Carol, no one would have known until you brought it up. But yeah, I
was talking to Zoom. Sorry.
It's an incredible legal strategy by Johnny. There's a thumbs up. There was incredible legal strategy by Cochran's team to lean into OJ being super black, even though nothing about OJ's life was black. Is just pretty crazy. And then, so my favorite thing about the trial is probably, it's not even the trial. It's the stand-up routine from, because I had seen it previously, and it just, you know, it popped back up on the social medias here lately. But DC Curry talk about how, you know, opening statements of the trial, Marshall Clark gets up there and starts laying out the evidence, and DC is like, well, damn, after all of that evidence, this motherfucker is guilty. We all know he did it. I don't even know why they having a trial. And then he was like, but then I kept watching. And then smooth Johnny Cochran got up there and was like, well, first of all, it's too much evidence against OJ. Ain't nobody that could have been this damn stupid. Like, and he's like, oh, it's like blood all over the apartment. He like left his hat on one of the victims, and they got blood on the wall, and they got blood in the Bronco, blood outside the Bronco. He's like, he broke into his own house. The motherfucker ain't got no key to his own house. He lived there. It was fucking hilarious. And then he's like, by the end of Johnny Cochran's opening statements, he was like, had me convinced that OJ didn't do it because nobody could be that fucking stupid. Johnny Cochran so smooth, he had OJ convinced that he didn't do it. But like that is actually, it's hilarious because that is the level of evidence we have against Trump in his multiple criminal indictments. Like it's so much fucking evidence. You're like, it's almost impossible to believe that someone was this fucking stupid to leave.
So is he going to get Johnny Cochran?
Johnny Cochran is no longer with us, Carol. Rest in peace.
Oh, he did die, didn't he?
How recently was that?
It's been over a decade now. But yeah, Johnny Cochran is probably the only person that could get Trump off. Well, except for maybe in Florida where Judge Cannon can get Trump off.
Well, because are they all dead? Is what's his name? What's that other Shapiro?
You know what? I don't know if Shapiro is
because I know Kardashian's dead, of course. I know Cochran's dead. What about Marsha Clark? Well, that was a prosecutor, but is she alive?
You know what?
Christopher Darden. I saw some stuff about him, like a year or so ago. I don't know. It was some mess.
Yeah. I have no.
But as far as the legal team, was what Cochran, Kardashian, and Shapiro. They were the three main.
Yeah. Well, don't forget about Alan Dershowitz, who's made a turn for the worse here.
Yeah, I wouldn't rely on him if I were Trump.
No, and my guy Carl Douglas, he's still with us. He's fantastic. He's still doing great work for the community, and as far as the legal avenues are concerned. But yeah, I guess my bigger point there is much like with the OJ trial and how it captivated the nation. We haven't seen anything like that until now with this Trump trial. And we're only 2 days into it and it's fucking off the rails already. And the news coverage of it is kind of, I mean, it's not over the top considering the circumstances, but it's kind of absurd.
What I would say is a difference between the Trump trial and the OJ trial. At least in the OJ trial, both sides were competent and it could have gone either way. In this instance, it's like he went to clown college to pick these attorneys and who he has speaking for them and that's what I think also made the OJ trial so captivating because there was a time where it seemed like, oh, this dude is toast. Yeah. And then it was, if they don't acquit, you must acquit. And then that shit was like it was, but it was captivating to watch.
It was a lot going on. Again, you had to be from the era. It was so much that was poured into, like, projected onto that trial that didn't necessarily apply to OJ. That's part of the reason why he got off. Also, the cops like just going overboard trying to get this dude.
Oh yeah, Mark Furman. He really screwed the pooch. But still, it was nice to see people make actual arguments.
Yeah,
did make sense.
OJ getting off, it was the wrong decision, but the jury came to the right conclusion based on the legal arguments that were made. Because obviously we're at the point now where we're like, of course he fucking did it. But I think just as OJ is kind of a weird vehicle for black grievance at the time, Trump is a weird vehicle like for white grievance in 2024, as he's nothing like the people who support him whatsoever. You know, wealthy, born with the silver spoon in his mouth, got all his money, basically inherited, if not committed crimes to get it. Just, you know, he's not representative of like the ideals that are placed upon him by his supporters. And you could say a similar thing about OJ in the 90s. It's just, you know, it's ironic. And also Trump fucking did it. So that's another thing that he
But
has.
you know what? I just like to remember you're saying it's the trial of the century. I mean, so far, this is only the first of his many criminal trials to come.
Well, yeah, we're going to get multiple trials of the century in the next couple of months if everything breaks the right direction.
He doesn't have to skate off making it think he only had one big trial of the century. There's fucking multiple trials.
Well, that's how big of a criminal he is, Carol. He's got multiple trials of the century, and he's just
like he
one
makes
guy.
O.J. seem like a saint. He only killed 2 people. How many deaths was Trump responsible for?
Well, it's funny you say that because another thing that Trump and O.J. have in common is just like this unabashed shamelessness. Like one of the crazy things after O.J. got off in after the trial, which is again the trial is crazy because you had to think about this. Like I think I was 12 at the time, maybe. I was in class when the jury reached a verdict. And our teacher cut the fucking trial on in the middle of the class, which is really incredible. Ty, are you asleep? Are you still with us?
No, I'm not asleep. I was just looking at this this thing, that Uber driver thing that got shot.
Oh yeah, it's fucking crazy. We'll talk about that another time.
Looking at that and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes, heartbreaking.
Yeah,
no, but so like after the jury verdict came down and OJ was found not guilty, although he was clearly not innocent. Like, yeah. Well, one of the things, like OJ was just like, all right, cool. I get to go back to my life. He was like going back to the same places he picked it, like to the barbershop and the golf course, and people was looking at him like he was fucking crazy.
Yeah. He had to pick his ass up and move to Florida. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Like Florida is where, they go. You running from shit, you are no longer you're persona non grata. But yeah, he was not getting the love because everybody knew. Everybody knew. After watching that trial and hearing all that evidence, even people that were fans, like it was not the same.
And then him being like, I'm gonna find a real killer's dog. The mirror is right there. But yeah,
it's like, bro, read the room. That's when you just do a Robert Blake.
And I'm gonna write a book that isn't suspicious at all. Telling
and then do weird ass and then do weird ass Twitter posts. But yeah, like the fact that he was like, all right, cool, it's back to business as usual. That is very much like Trump. Although like the 90s was a different time apparently because OJ couldn't get away with that shit. Trump committed all these crimes and people just act like it's normal now.
Yeah. That is, oh gosh, we really have crossed the Rubicon, haven't we?
Yeah, Jesus. We just normalize all of this insane behavior on Trump. Like if OJ had if OJ had only killed his wife 30 years earlier, maybe he could have lived quite a normal life afterwards. He definitely would have been a Trump supporter.
Oh, for sure.
Later?
What do you mean?
Earlier?
No, I mean if OJ had killed his wife after, say, the January 6th insurrection and got off, he could have just went back to life as normal because he would have been like,
that's true.
The trial,
that is true.
Yeah, the charges were rigged and it was a witch hunt. And
you're right. That is, you know what? That is such a good point, D. That is exactly how it would have gone. That is exactly all during the trial. They would have been, this is a hoax. This is it would have been like that.
Prove that she's dead. Prove it.
It's like, yeah, like.
But also I did it and she deserved it.
Yeah.
Like Trump.
Apologies to, I know all the family of Nicole Brown are listening right now.
Look, I hate to be insensitive.
And the Goldmans. Sorry.
Like people did die and their families are, well, look, families, you finally got justice. The real killer is dead.